Welcome everybody to Marathon Swim Stories. If you have something you haven't seen in a while, um, we usually just open it up. I give you the big, wide, open-ended question. Bill, tell us your story.
First of all, thanks, Shannon, for having me on. And thank you all, especially the ones who are up super early. I'll try not to put you back to sleep. I guess my story is I'm just a guy who likes to swim. I was born in Washington, D.C. I've pretty much grown up and stayed in this area my whole life. I live in Maryland now. Lived in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. Went to college and law school in D.C. and swam all the way through that experience. That's kind of who I am.
Just born and bred swimmer. When did you start pushing distance?
Well, I started, the whole age group thing and swam through high school and college and was really just a pool swimmer. Enjoyed it quite a bit. I liked racing. Got back into master swimming probably for the second time in my 40s after my kids were a little bit older. And I was still a pool swimmer mostly. But there were a couple in our group that were swimming the Chesapeake Bay swim. And there's a group called the Rundle Breakfast Club, ABC Swimming. And somehow I got dragged into joining them for some swims and started out with the Chesapeake Bay swim, and it kind of grew from there.
I've heard it commonly, I fell in with a bad crowd is usually what people say. That's how they started marathon swimming.
Yeah, the people who've been doing it are kind of infectious in terms of you start hanging around with them and all of us catch the bug, it seems like.
Yeah, the catching the bug, that's a common phrase too. Why do you think you keep doing marathons?
Well, I started, really my gateway drug was the Kingdom swims. You know about that, Shannon.
Yeah, that's where we met.
I did the bay swim 4 or 5 times before I decided to branch up to what at that time was a big distance for me, was the 10-mile swim up in Vermont, which I was, somebody said, well, I'm going to go try this swim. I said, well, maybe I'll go with you. Glenn Mills, who's a great swimmer and coach, I went along with him and we did the 10-mile that year. And there was just something about it, swimming outside in a beautiful lake, great surroundings, good people who weren't all intensely hyper about their next event. Pool racing is kind of intense, and if you're into that, it's great. But being around a supportive group that is just trying to accomplish their own goals and support each other is really kind of special. But then from the 10-mile, I just kind of worked my way up incrementally. And each time, the challenge of a bigger swim just draws you in. So that's how I got into longer swims. I'd say marathon swims, but some of the people on this call have done much more longer, greater swims. But getting into the high of a long distance swim that is a challenge, you kind of know you can do it, but you don't know you can do it. And pushing yourself is really what brings me back.
Mm-hmm. How do you describe that feeling of completing a marathon swim?
Well, usually when I finish, I've pretty much put everything I have into getting through the swim. Seems like no matter what the distance is, by the time I finish, dragging myself out of the water is just that, dragging. But there is a high once you get onto the beach or through the chute, if it's a race. A great sense of accomplishment. You've worked hard for sometimes months and years to get there. And it's really a sense of appreciation because you're pleased with what you've been able to accomplish, but you really didn't do it alone. You had a whole team of support that helped to get you where you are. And at that moment when you finish, it's great, you know, having your crew run over and greet you when you climb back in the boat, or being on the beach and having your kayaker run up and wrap a blanket around you or something. It's really a great sense of community and accomplishment.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Can you tell us about the swim you're most proud of?
Well, I guess I have to say that the English Channel to begin with, that it's just such a storied and revered swim that that became the goal once I started getting into longer and longer swims. But probably the swim I'm most proud of completing is the swim across the Sound, because that was a very trying, difficult swim for me. We had some mechanical problems with the boat, which created challenges. Even with that, I thought I was chugging along, and when I finally finished, it seemed like I was hours behind everybody else. There was nobody there except the crowd stuck around. There's an amazing crowd there. Liz is on this call. She's one of the organizers and safety directors. I wouldn't have finished if she hadn't let me finish on the cutoff, but because of our boat problems, she let me make my way in. And I think we had 3 or 4 boat changes.
Wow.
And what that just shows you is that you have to be prepared for whatever happens. And you can't let it get to you, although there were a couple times where I may have said a couple expletives. But you got to get your head back in the game and just keep going. And somehow through all that, I managed to finish. And that was the swim. I think I remember getting out, and Liz came running down the dock to greet me because you know, she had stuck it out with me for so long. And I said, "Am I ready?" And she said, "Yes." And that's when I decided to sign up for the English Channel.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that does it. That does a number on you if you have to turn the boats are turning over. I mean, it's hard enough just to get through your mental.
I was swimming along and breathing, you know, every other stroke or so, you get a glimpse of what's going on in the boat. And the captain it was a smaller boat because it's not like the Channel. It's not a big fishing boat, but the back seat was up, which I knew was where the engine was. And he's in there. And finally, my crew person, Lalani, said, "Okay, here's what's going to happen. The boat is sinking. Don't worry. We're going to get another boat. And we're going to come back for you." And they did. And Liz kept an eye on me. And it was just, you know, it was an experience, and it's one that I'll never forget. And I mean that in a positive way. It's great stories and great time. And I should say that Liz runs a great event, very safe, very organized. So I'm not complaining.
That's awesome. Is there anything you haven't finished?
Yeah, you know that. You and I spent some time on a boat, the very first, I guess, reincarnation of the Memphrey swim.
Mm-hmm.
Phil White pulled a group together, and it was an interesting year for me because 2010, I was diagnosed with cancer and had a surgery in the beginning of 2011, and I knew that my swim pool season was over, but I was shooting for the Bay swim and the 10 miler in Vermont. And I said, "Phil, I don't know what I'm going to be able to do, but I'd like to do the 10 mile." And he said, "I'll keep a slot for you." And he did. So I swam that 10 miler and finished, and thought I was done, like I'd accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in my recovery period. A couple of weeks later, I get this call from Phil saying, "I'm getting a couple group of people together to swim the length of the lake. Do you want in?" I said, "When?" He said, "Oh, next month." I said, "Okay." And we went in September 2011, and it was a terrible night. It was pitch black. It was raining. It was cold. We had dinner early. I said, "I'm going to do whatever Liz does." He ordered the roasted chicken. I ordered exactly what Liz ate because she knows what she's doing. Within a mile, I was barfing up chicken.
We had like
And,
1 mile wave, or we had like 1 foot. I don't know. We had some huge waves. It was crazy.
it was crazy. It was insane. And it was really my first marathon swim. And I got out at like 8 miles. It was just, my kayaker couldn't keep up with us because of the wind. And it was just a mess. And afterwards, Phil said, yeah, I had no business asking you to do that. One of the stories he tells about is he was about a couple miles out, and he said to Christian on the boat, his helper, just shoot me now because I don't want to watch these swimmers die one day. It was so crazy. But Liz finished, and Elaine finished, and Greg finished, and Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah. What did you learn anything from that?
Yeah, I learned to prepare better.
Yeah.
And then I learned a little bit about expecting the unexpected. I think that probably helped me a lot for the English Channel, that no matter what was going to happen, you just have to roll with it. Like I said to Liz, like, how did that chicken go? She said, oh yeah, I threw that up. I just kept going.
Unfazed.
I had to learn how to just roll with it. You just got to go with it. Trust yourself.
Yeah. Yep. It takes having the experience some time to know, though, that you can handle that, right?
I think the failures help you more than the successes sometimes.
That's why we ask this question. Let's see. Where is your favorite place to swim?
Well, I love swimming around Annapolis. We swim in 2 or 3 of the rivers, and we swim out in the bay. It allows us to extend our season quite a bit, stay out of the pool as long as we can. It's been a bad year for nettles, but we still love it. So that's my home base, and I love swimming there.
Awesome. What's training been like for you, and has it changed over your decade of marathon swimming?
Oh, over my decade.
Well, the marathon swimming part, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know what? When I started out swimming, I had this thought that, all these people who do these marathon swims are largely open water swimmers and training for open water. And I was going to be the guy that still could go, 150 in the 200 free and kill the 100 free, but then also swim 20 miles. And, it kind of worked for a little bit. But as I got more and more into the marathon swimming and less into the pool swimming, I found out I lost the fast twitch and had to learn about my forever stroke so that I could just keep going. And those things are a little bit incompatible. I do some meets every once in a while, and I'm amazed at how difficult it is. People are like, oh, you should do the 500 in a mile. That's like a sprint for you. But I'm like, I can't sprint.
Yep.
Don't sprint. But so we swim 5 to 7 times a week. We have swims available, and I probably swim 5 times a week. And I've been pretty consistent with that from when I really started training for open water to now. We had a little blip with the pandemic, but we're back in and swimming regularly. I'm not swimming as much right now as I was before. Training time has been difficult to find, but still staying in touch with the water. And I think that's probably the most important thing for people who are trying to get through the time and keep their contact with the water. Just swim what you can. Don't worry necessarily, unless you're training for a big event, how much distance you're getting. Just get in the water and do it and stay in touch with it.
Yeah, touch the water. That's what I like to say.
Yeah.
How's the pandemic been for you?
Well, the first part, I was all prepared to hunker down for 2 weeks of, tough isolation. Now what are we, 5, 6 months?
6 months.
And So at first it was hard because the pool shut down, and this is a story you all know. Um, it was still a little cold for us to be outside. We did go out sooner than we probably would have. We're not Caroline. We need a little warmth in the water. But we did get out there, and we've been out training outside regularly. The pools are now open, but you have to reserve time, and it's difficult to get slots. And so we're outside as much as we can. And in some ways, that's been the lifesaver because some people love working at home and handle being alone just fine. I don't. I don't mind working at home. I don't like doing it all the time. I miss the interaction with my office and the colleagues that I work with, and swimming in the pool with our team. I miss all that. So being able to get back into the rivers with some distancing and still see your friends and do some good swimming has really been not just good physical fitness, but mentally really important.
Mm-hmm. Have you found any knowledge or carryovers from marathon swimming to help you get through some of the tough times of the pandemic?
Yeah, I've heard people talk about that that you trained marathon athlete, swimming, running, whatever, triathlon. You're used to, pacing yourself and sticking it out for the long run. I guess that's the stock answer, but I don't know. I mean, you just, in some respects, I take it day to day and try not to overreact to the weight of it. You have good days and bad days, I think. Some days it really gets to me. And I think that is a little bit like marathon swimming. Sometime during that swim, you're going to have a really bad moment and a bad period. But I think you're going to get through it, and you just keep going. And I think that's kind of the way I approach this pandemic thing, is that we just got to stick with it and be smart and don't get complacent and just kind of, we're going to come out the other end.
We hope so, right? Yeah. I think you pretty much answered that question about how to get through hard things. Just keep going.
Well, as far as swimming goes, one of the things that I do in my marathon swims to help me get through the
Hold on, Bill. We're getting some weird feedback.
Better now?
Yes, better now. Thank you.
I do affirmations that just to support people. And I started this after my own bout with cancer. And so as I was preparing for the channel, I kept track of friends and family who were going through cancer or other health issues. And I would just, during the swim, repeat in cadence with my swim. I see Donna healthy, happy, and whole. And I see Doug recovered and cancer free. And you just do that with the rhythm of your stroke from one feed to another, half hour, 45 minutes of just repeating that over and over. And I had this grand scheme of I was putting this out to the universe, and it was helping these people, but really it was helping me.
Yeah.
As it took my mind off the fact that I was still 15 miles from finish. And, you just get to the next feed. And that's really my mantra of long swimming. Don't think about the finish, just get to the next feed and see your crew people and smile a little bit and keep going.
Did you, that's a really awesome intention. I really love that. Did you have your crew help kind of prompt with names of people to think of, or did you just have all these people, you backlog people in your brain? Yeah.
I don't think, at least the first couple times, I don't think they even knew. I had it in my head of people, and you got a lot of time to think. So
you do, absolutely. Yeah.
Who you wanted to think about, and you think about other people that you hadn't thought about. And But that's what I do. I know some people sing songs over and over, and
I've got no capacity for that myself, but
not, I'm not big on joke telling at feeds and banter. I kind of do my feed and grunt. But while I'm swimming, I'm thinking about a lot of different stuff.
Mhm. Yeah. What motivates you to keep going?
And to keep doing swims, you mean?
You interpret it. What motivates you to keep going
Well,
day to
during
day?
a swim, what motivates me is the finish.
Yeah.
I wholly believe in safety. I don't think I'm reckless. Um, I I wouldn't argue with a boat captain or crew, but I'm not getting in the boat. Now, of course, if they tell me it's time, it's going to be time. But in my own mind, I'm not getting in the boat. And so what motivates me is finishing. As far as additional swims, there's just so many. And it just seems like in the last year or two, people were thinking up these incredible swims. You know, it used to be kind of a handful of the big swims that everybody did. And
Mhm.
now everybody's doing just really interesting, great things. And I think my focus is more on kind of destination swims that interest me, as opposed to um, checking off the box of things I have to do. So I look for places that I think would be really cool to swim.
Mhm. What's been a favorite swim memory?
I had a blast in Gibraltar.
Did you? I was hoping you would tell us about Gibraltar.
Jim Clifford and I went to Gibraltar. It almost didn't happen because like 2 months before the swim,
You went underwater again, Bill. We've lost your audio.
sorry,
That's okay. That's better. Oh, nope.
area shut down the international waters. So about 2 weeks before the swim, we got a call saying he's moved the boat. You can still come. We canceled our lodging, canceled our airfare. We had two other guys that were going with us. Jim and I were talking, and we just said, hell, let's just do this thing. And so we put it all back together, and we went there, and we had a blast. It is, for me, the funnest swim. I think it can be a difficult swim if you get bad conditions, but Tarifa is a great town, great place to hang out and eat and drink good wine. The swim association does a good job, and swimming from one continent to another is a pretty cool thing. Even though it's on the scale of marathon swims, it's relatively short, so it doesn't kill you. And Jim and I just had a blast. We had so much fun, and that was my favorite swim.
Awesome. How do you think we can be more inclusive in marathon swimming?
Yeah, I don't think that's really a problem. I mean, I see marathon swimming growing by leaps and bounds. I guess we could probably do a better job. As I look at this screen, I think competition swimming has done a better job of including minorities and other folks, disadvantaged folks in the sport. I think Phil White does a great job of encouraging folks with disabilities to swim some of his swims. He's had some great athletes who had some physical challenges do those swims. But we could probably work on reaching out to the African American community a little better. It'd be nice to see a little more diversity in the sport. I wish, I really would. There's so many like sports documentary stories that go on in cable, and you hear about how they have to fill content. I just wish we could find a way to have them focus on some of the great swims people were doing. Um, I think it's a crime that Sarah Thomas hasn't gotten more coverage than she did. Um, and, Liz and Caroline have done some great swims. I think if we could just crack into that, the stories involved with doing marathon swimming are amazing. And I think they'd make great television to follow. And we probably need to get more guys to get serious about it, because the women are just kicking their asshole.
As it should be.
Really pathetic.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of what's behind marathon swim stories for me, is like really wanting to because I think that there's this, when you tell people about some big swim that you do, people are like, what did you do that for? How did you do that? Or that seems impossible to them. But I want people to know that marathon swimmers can be from anywhere. They can be competitive swimmers, but there's people that come in later in life. And I'm trying to highlight that, I guess. That's kind of why I don't start with people's, like the resume of swims, because I want it to be unintimidating to like the average person.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about open water swimming and marathons. You don't have to be the fast person. You don't have to be the slow person. You don't have to be a lifetime swimmer.
Yeah.
There's different things you got to look out for. If you're a fast swimmer and kind of speedy out of the gate, it's kind of my MO. You got to be wary of the fact that you're probably going to burn out if you go out like a bat out of hell. But if you're a slower swimmer, it's not a bad thing. It just means you got to be aware of certain swims that are tide dependent, and figure that out. A swim like Chesapeake Bay swim's just a short little 4.4 mile swim. But if you don't have the wherewithal to get past certain checkpoints, which are set based upon what's going to happen with the tide, you're going to have an issue. But that doesn't mean that people of all different speeds don't do that swim, because they do. Same thing with Boston Light. If you don't get to a certain point, there's a cutoff and you're going to get pulled. But you just have to plan for it. And I think that's ultimately what's really good about open water swim. First of all, there's not a lot of equipment requirements. So it's not that expensive to start doing it. And people of all experiences and speeds can do just fine.
Yep, exactly. What advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
First of all, just swim. If you're looking to ramp up to bigger swims, so you got to look at what you're doing now and in a strategic way increase your distance and maybe your intensity. I don't think you need to go crazy and all of a sudden say I'm going to swim 7 days a week for 4 hours a day, because you'll probably get sick of it and quit. But swim all the time. Listen to people you can find who've done this. Find a good mentor. Swim with a group. Don't just swim alone, because the group's going to push you. Think about feeding and how to get through a swim eating junk you would never want to eat on the regular.
That's a good way to put it.
And get your head straight about what your expectations are and whether they're realistic and how you work up to it. I mean, I spent, I don't know, Liz, two plus years planning to build my base to do the channel. And because I respected that swim so much and I didn't want to go over there and fail. So, you just find swims. The good thing is there's so many swims around, and find swims that will help you build from 4.4 to 10 to 17 to 25 and then keep going.
Yeah, I like the Mark Spratt method of just his events are his training.
Yeah.
But it's fun to do it that way.
Well,
Get the
I
social.
do think that if you have one or two major swims on the calendar, that what you fill in with other events are training for that swim for me. Like the Kingdom 15 was my last tune up for the channel,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's yep, that's what I recommend too when I'm coaching people. Diane asked, how often do you feed and on what?
Yeah, I'm a 30-minute to 45-minute um, feed person. I can't see for me, going beyond 45 minutes. I might go an hour out the first
Mhm.
time and then every 45 minutes. Um, I've switched around on feed. I do Carbo Pro for a while with some electrolyte. Um, I've done Infinite Nutrition. Uh, I tried UCAN. I didn't really catch on to that. Um, so I'd probably say I'm more often than not Carbo Pro with a little bit of electrolyte every once in a while. I have other things. I think I survived the last half of Manhattan on Coca-Cola.
Mm. Nice.
Because I came out of the Harlem and it was hot and not moving and brown, and I was ill. And the only thing that could settle me down and help me keep going was Coke. So I don't think I drank any of my feed except for Coke. That's the
Interesting.
whole way. I usually have some peppermint tea, hot tea
Hmm.
ready, and I feed every once in a while on solids, either little peanut butter crackers, really small, so you don't have to chew them too much. And I love having fresh blueberries because you can just pop them in your mouth and they're easy to chew. And if you swallow one whole, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, those are good recommendations. Charlotte surprised me last year when I did Menfrey with grapes, and it was like the best thing in the world in the middle of the lake to eat grapes. They're
I like
such
to make
refreshing.
frozen grapes.
That sounds good. Yeah, the Coke is a good trick too. I always forget that one, but at least I hear tell of it being a really great way to get people through. What marathon swimmer has inspired you?
Well, I've had two mentors along the way that really helped me a lot. One is Liz. She actually was with our Annapolis group just as I was joining. She was moving away, and she's helped me not just during swims, but preparing for swims. And then, of course, her achievements have been great. And Elaine Howley has helped me. She's crewed for me several times, and she's also been a great sounding board on nutrition and other stuff, just talking about stuff with swims. And Sarah Thomas. Um, I had a great opportunity to meet Sarah initially when Phil called me up, another Vermont story, and said, I got this woman who wants to do the double Memphre. I think she can actually do it. And she's got the stuff. Would you crew for her? I said, so I just drove up. First time I met her and Ryan was on the dock the day before looking at the boat. And Ryan and I sat in one of those little metal boats for 30 hours, peeing in a bottle. And I was feeding Sarah, and then I was slipping Ryan Vicodin because he had thrown his back out
Oh, no.
with a chainsaw cutting up wood in their yard like 3 days before the swim. I didn't know if she's to make the trip. So, and she's just amazing. She just cranks it out, doesn't get mad, just keeps swimming. I think that's like a lot of people, but I've just really enjoyed knowing Sarah, and forever thankful to Liz and for everything they've done to help me learn the sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any other swim stories? I feel like you're hiding lots of secret swim stories
Ah,
there.
um, I was just thinking that Tahoe was a particularly miserable swim.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And that's another one about learning how to prepare, because I think the altitude really got to me. Uh,
Hmm.
and people said either you got to get there like a week or more in advance to acclimate. And I didn't have that kind of time from work. And they said, or you just have to get in and get out. So I flew in like a day before, or 2 days before. And it was a beautiful night. The water was nice. But somewhere about 4 miles in, I just started getting sick, and I was sick to my stomach for the rest of the way,
Mm.
and could not stop. Sarah was my crew, and she kept trying different things for feed to get me something, but I couldn't keep anything down, and I just kept swimming. At one point, we all know, like, the cardinal rule is never ask how much further,
Right, right.
because your crew's not going to tell you.
Or
And
to
it was
lie.
still dark, and I said, Sarah, I just have to ask how much further, because I don't know. And she said, not far. It'll be light in about an hour, and you'll be fine. And that's what I needed. And I remember during that time that Liz has always said, look, you got to train and get used to your feeds, but if you can't eat for 8 or 10 hours, is it really going to kill you? And so the fact that I wasn't able to feed, just, it was miserable, but it was fine. And I wasn't getting in the boat, and I finished.
That's good. But
Well,
just
let me change it. Sarah was not letting me back in.
would you have gotten in if it wasn't for Sarah?
Maybe. I
Yeah.
actually might have. Yeah. She said afterwards that she really was struggling with it, because she was trying to make sure I was safe,
Right.
but she didn't want to give up. So she didn't
Yeah.
let me give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, you know, I think crewing is harder than swimming,
Yeah, for sure.
because you're watching your friend go through some pretty miserable stuff.
Yeah.
And I've had to pull somebody like 2 miles from the end of Memphis. And if she had just gotten around this point, she would have seen Magog, right? And once you see the end, it usually helps a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
But she was delirious. She wasn't responding,
Mm.
and I started crying, and she started crying. But she got out, and she said it was the right thing. But it's the hardest thing to watch your friend go through that, but then also tell them it's time to get out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really tough. Yeah.
Mainly because you know that it's been 7, 8 months of dream, and you're the one telling them they're not going to finish their dream. It's
Yeah.
hard.
It's really hard. But you're responsible for their safety as crew. So you got to do what you got to do. Very cool. Thank you for sharing your story with us today, Bill. It was a really pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, you
Swimming.
guys. Yes, keep swimming. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.